Parents sabotaged every relationship I've had, convincing my boyfriends to leave me, and now my boyfriend insists on meeting them. I was very shy during high school and didn't leave my house unless I had to, so as a result I didn't get a boyfriend until my freshman year of college. After 7 months of dating my first ever BF, I brought him to my parents' house for dinner, just so they could meet him. I had to step away for roughly 10 minutes to help my older sister with her baby, and when I came back, my BF, then 20 meters, and my dad, old, were having a full-blown fist fight. We managed to stop them and my BF stormed off without saying anything, while my dad insisted my BF was incredibly rude and disrespectful to him and my mother and that a guy like that was no good for me, because he'd just end up doing the same thing to me. I was shocked that my BF could do such a thing because he had always been extremely sweet and I've never met or heard of anyone not liking him. But when I called him and told him what my dad had said about what happened, all he did was laugh and say I can believe whatever I want, before blocking me on everything. I was deeply disturbed by this, but my mom and sister insisted that he had just shown his true colors and said my dad saved me from an abuser. I reluctantly accepted this, but something about it felt really off. I met my second boyfriend several months later, during my sophomore year. Part of me still felt my parents were part of the problem with my last BF, so I managed to get him to wait an entire year before introducing him to my parents. From the moment she laid eyes on him, every word my mom spoke to him was dripping with fake friendliness and subtle jabs implying she did not approve of him, which made him visibly uncomfortable. While we were eating dinner, she began asking me what made me decide to date my BF, and asked about other guys and why they didn't work out. Some of the guys she asked about were completely made up. At this point it was clear what they were trying to do, and I silently vowed to talk to my BF and tell him how my parents were trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, it didn't get that far, as my dad chipped in and demanded to know how a boy who couldn't support himself financially was ever going to support his daughter. Mind you, we were both juniors in college at this point, and both of us were working part-time jobs. So this question was really insane. He responded by saying he'd already decided he wanted nothing to do with his family and was planning to break up with me when he got home, but he's just going to leave now. Within minutes, he was gone, and I was blocked. Again, my parents insisted they did nothing wrong and just wanted to test his confidence as any parents would, but I pointed out that this was the second boyfriend they chased away, and they didn't do anything to scare off my older sister's husband. I went low contact with them after that, but fast forwarding a little bit, I eventually allowed them to gaslight me into introducing them to my third boyfriend, whom I had met towards the end of my senior year, and basically the same thing happened. I had made it through college unable to find a long-term BF, purely because of my parents. I did meet my current BF, 28 meters, 2 years ago, and I have managed to avoid introducing him to my family thus far. If he ever brought it up I would always have a ready-made excuse prepared to explain why it wasn't possible, which has been pretty easy because he usually only asks about them when planning for major holidays. I have fallen madly in love with him and hope to start a family with him one day, but he recently told me that he can't even allow me to move in with him until he's had a chance to meet my family. I do not know what to do, as I know my parents will make it their mission to break us up if they meet him, but based on his insistence on meeting them, I realize I can't put this off any longer. Usually, relationships end because of something one person in the relationship says or does, and it's incredibly unfair that I always end up single because of things I cannot control. I want to tell my BF about my parents and insist that meeting them is a bad idea, but I've listened in on some of his conversations with his friends, and the general consensus among them seems to be that a girl with a super dysfunctional family is a massive red flag, and an indicator of what their married life would be like. So I come here asking, how do I approach the problem that is my parents without risking losing the longest relationship I've ever had? If my parents end up being the cause of yet another breakup, I just don't know what I'll do. I just don't know. Edit. Wow, I made this post about an hour before going to bed, but woke up to quite a few comments here. Thank you so much to everyone who has helped me realize what I need to do. I've read through all of the comments and saw some recurring questions come up that I wanted to address. I am not fully no contact with my parents primarily because they helped me a lot financially during college and when I first graduated and was looking for a job. When I went low contact with them they constantly yelled at me for being ungrateful and said family does not turn on each other over minor disagreement involving boys. It sounds ridiculous when I type it here, but after months of this treatment, when I found myself faced with the decision to either tell them I forgive them so they'll pay for my dorm room, or refuse to forgive them and have to move back home, I ended up caving. Why didn't I stand up for my past BFs when I saw them being verbally abused? I don't know. I've never been allowed to talk back to my parents, so the thought of calling them out while we have company over is not something I realized I could do, I guess. My arguments with them after they ran off BF 2 and 3 were the only times I've ever come into full conflict with them in my entire life. I will be going to my BF's house today after work, and will tell him everything. I am terrified he will still want to meet them. Just thinking about it has me shaking at my desk, but you all are right. He has a right to know and make his own decision. Edit 2, I told him, and even showed him this post. To make a long story short, he still would like to meet them but thanked me for telling him, as he always figured something was seriously wrong. My parents host dinners for our family every Sunday, and we will be attending this one. I suppose I'll make a new post with an update afterwards. Update 1. My boyfriend, BF, is pretty involved now, so I guess I should give him a fake Name. I will call him Ethan. I sat Ethan down and told him about my parents and how they ran off my previous boyfriends, before showing him my original post as many recommended. Fortunately, he did not seem to care that I hadn't told him, but he did agree with many commenters that my parents were more than just insane, they were outright abusive. Although he understood how I felt, he still said he would like to meet them, both to see it for himself, but also because he felt there was an underlying reason for their behavior. My parents have dinner for the family every Sunday, which I have been attending on the weeks that I'm not hanging out with Ethan that day, so we agreed that he would come to the next one. When Sunday came and we arrived at my parents' house, my anxiety was through the roof. Ethan had agreed to leave with me the moment things started to get out of hand, but with my parents that could have easily been as soon we walked through the front door. My parents were surprisingly very nice, though. My dad actually seemed excited to see Ethan, and my mom fawned over her daughter bringing home such a handsome, confident-looking man. I couldn't understand what was happening. Ethan even shot me a look a couple times, as if to silently ask if he was missing something, because my parents were actually lovely. I want to provide a play-by-play of the entire night, but the post would just be too long. The point is, my parents had done a complete 180 from their previous behavior, and it made me look and feel crazy for trying to warn Ethan about them ahead of time. During dinner, my mom said she was so happy to see her daughter had finally found someone who wasn't judgmental and was willing to give me a chance because of the person I am today, because the past doesn't matter. My heart dropped. What was she talking about? Ethan said he does not know about anything in my past that may be cause of concern, and my parents exchanged a concerned look, as if it was rehearsed. My dad asked him why he thinks my previous relationships failed, and he said that he was under the impression they got scared away after meeting my parents. My mother looked at me with disappointment on her face and said, "Is that really what you told him?" I was at a loss for words, but Ethan was not. He said that it's pretty clear they are trying to plant seeds of doubt in him about our relationship, but he is not interested, as he knows me well enough to know my character and that even if there was something serious in my past, parents who loved and supported me or even just wanted grandchildren would keep it a secret to avoid ruining my relationship. My dad said he already has 2 grandchildren, and motioned towards my sister, who did not have her kids with her that evening. Ethan said my dad must have been very supportive of my sister for her to be able to start a family while he tries to run off any guy I bring home. And my dad's response was very casual, but extremely shocking. He said, "Of course, she's actually mine." Everyone was quiet for a few moments, until Ethan spoke up and said that now all of the abuse they've only put me through is starting to make sense. My mom said he's spouting nonsense, and that I have not been abused in any way. She then looked at me and admitted her marriage had a rocky start, but both her and my father have moved past that. I was too busy replaying my entire life in my head to say anything. The previous boyfriends, the lack of support for my social outings growing up, the volleyball games I had to have a friend drive me to because my parents were always too busy, the rage I was always at risk of facing if I ever spoke my mind. All while my sister got the opposite. I started to cry, the hardest I ever have. Ethan immediately announced that we are leaving. My dad demanded we stay where we are so we can clear things up, but Ethan ignored him as he pulled me out of my chair and led me away. My mom screamed at me not to leave, and that this guy was trying to isolate me from my family. I yelled back that if anyone had been trying to isolate me, it was her, for my whole life. As we drove back to Ethan's place, my mom sent me several text messages cussing me out, saying one mistake doesn't change the fact that my dad loved, supported, and raised me, and that he would always be my real father. Ethan said he's not my dad, he's an abusive, controlling asshole who was taking his insecurities out on me. I ended up blocking both of my parents' numbers because they were saying some truly awful things to me, both about myself and Ethan. Ethan said he was expecting them to be crazy, but this was far worse than he could have anticipated. He said I need to go into therapy immediately, and that he will pay for anything my insurance doesn't cover. My parents showed up at my apartment twice yesterday to demand I come out and speak to them, but I've been staying at Ethan's all weekend and will likely be here all week. I'm not sure if this is the update y'all wanted. I had countless people enraged at me for being spineless and not standing up to my parents, and while I had planned on doing so, that's not what happened. Update 2. I wasn't sure whether I could handle another update, but so much more has happened that I needed to write. I honestly don't even know how to process it all, so I'm hoping by typing this out, I can get my thoughts together and hear from you all again. Thank you, everyone, for your encouragement and advice so far. Okay, so, after blocking my parents, they continued to show up at my apartment almost every day. My roommate had to text me a few times warning me that my mother had tried to hang out in the hallway just to see if I'd come home, and my dad even threatened to call the police and report me as a missing person. I ended up texting my mom just so she knew I was alive, and, of course, she immediately began the guilt trips again. Family doesn't abandon each other. I don't know what you've told Ethan, but you know you're not a Cunningham. That's my family name. Therapy was step 1, like Ethan insisted. Turns out my university has a mental health program for alumni, which I never knew about. Ethan found it in about 6 minutes online. He's good at this stuff, and I got scheduled for a virtual session with a really kind woman named Dr. P. I don't want to ramble about therapy, but it's weird. She made me talk about childhood, and every time I tried to justify my parents' behavior with, well, at least they didn't scream at me every day, she would gently point out all the other, quieter ways they would control me. She diagnosed me with complex PTSD and started helping me prep a no-contact safety and boundaries plan, which apparently is something people in my kind of situations sometimes need. But now, on to the wild part. 2 days after the last dinner, I got a Facebook friend request, from a name I didn't even recognize. Curious, I clicked the profile. Only a couple of photos public, but one was. Well, it was a young woman who looked oddly familiar. Enough that friends would guess we're related. I accepted the request, and within about 30 minutes, I got a message that changed everything. "Hi, I think we might be sisters?" She introduced herself as Lisa K. She said she had grown up about 30 minutes away from where I lived, always knowing she was adopted but only recently getting access to her original birth certificate. The birth mother's name? My mother's. I froze. I didn't even tell Ethan right away, I was too stunned. Lisa explained, gently, that she had spent a few months searching for any possible birth siblings and hoped I wouldn't be upset. She'd found me through an ancestry site we both apparently matched on. I sent one, single, shaking message back: "Please, tell me everything you know about our mom. Did you ever meet her?" Over the next few days, we messaged back and forth while I worked up the courage to fill Ethan in. Lisa had never met our mother but did reach out. She said my mother responded flatly, denying that Lisa meant anything to her. But according to Lisa's records, her birthday was only about 13 months before mine. Let me repeat that part for the people in the back. My mom had a child she gave up for adoption just over a year before she had me. That made things click in the worst kind of way. Suddenly, so much made sense. My mom was forced to keep me, as a form of penance or obligation for giving up her first daughter? Dr. P calls this replacement child syndrome, where parents project all their guilt and frustration over a lost child on the next one. It explains the constant pressure, the you don't measure up energy, the weirdly possessive behavior. I finally told Ethan, then my therapist. Ethan was furious on my behalf and immediately suggested we DNA test to confirm. He thinks in data and evidence, it's a science guy thing, and Lisa agreed too. We did a cheek swab, mailed it over, and sure enough. Full sisters. Biological mother confirmed. The fallout since then? It's been even crazier. I confronted my mom in a single, massive email. I explained I knew about Lisa, that I was in contact with her, and that if she wanted to speak, it would need to be as honest adults, with no lies, no drama, no weird control games. The reply? A wall of text and then a single line: "If you insist on betraying your family, don't bother coming back." So, at least she's consistent in her approach. Sarcastic: "Thanks, Mom, but here's where the story took a truly unexpected turn. When Lisa saw my post about my experiences, she requested to see my Reddit account after we got comfortable. She told me, I have an uncle who remembered a girl they lost touch with because of my birth. Turns out our biological grandfather, my mom's dad, has been looking for his granddaughters for decades but was told by my mom that they both want nothing to do with family. Last weekend, Lisa and I met up for coffee. She's funny and much more grounded than I am, probably because she grew up with an actual loving family. She's also finishing her master's in social work, which is maybe the universe giving me a little sister therapist as karmic repayment. Ethan picked me up after our coffee, and I had this overwhelming feeling rush through me, like, here is what it could have been. What family should have felt like all along. Not shame and secrecy, but awkward laughter and you do that too. Discoveries. In the span of a week, I lost, or really just finalized the loss of, my entire family, but found an actual sister and a second chance at understanding what family might mean. And one final, jaw-dropping thing. My birth grandfather, still alive, nearly 90, called me, crying, and told me he had presents for his girls that he'd kept for years, hoping one day. I have an actual family photo album from their side of the family, mailed to me, of ancestors who apparently traveled to this country, with nothing and built up a great life. My grandfather's handwriting is shaky, but every single name and year is annotated on the back. Therapy is still wild and necessary, my boundaries work is ongoing, and Ethan will attend a session with me next week as well. He said, you, no matter where you came from, are the family I choose. Forever. The rest can get in line. I'm still afraid, don't get me wrong. I get panic attacks when my phone rings and the caller ID is mom or dad. I don't know if I'll ever see them again, and I'm still dealing with the guilt vomit my mom used to dish out at the slightest perceived disobedience. But now for the first time, I genuinely believe that maybe, just maybe, I can have my own life, my own family, on my terms. I have a sister who gets me, a boyfriend who stands by me, and a therapist ready to help me break the cycles for good. And for once, I get to decide who I bring into my life, and who I leave out. To everyone who supported me, thank you. I'm not sure what the next update will bring, or if I'll even need one, but crazy as it is, I think I finally believe I might be okay. Update 3: I genuinely didn't think my life could turn another corner so fast, but holy hell, it has. If you told freshman year me that a year after finally standing up to my parents I'd have not only a boyfriend who feels like home, but an actual full-blood sister, a real grandpa, and new family drama so wild it's almost funny, you'd have been met with blank, traumatized blinking. Yet here we are. I debated posting again, but so many of you have been so compassionate, and honestly, funny. Shout out to you /sister codependents for calling my BF literal S tier, keep him, and all your comments gave me courage. So here's what's gone down in the past month, after I stopped responding to their threats and guilt trips, and after my mom somehow stalked my social media enough to figure out something was up with a stranger, Lisa, in my photos. Their tactics went full scorched earth. I got a legal sounding letter from my dad, delivered to my mailbox, stating I owe them reimbursement for college tuition. If you needed proof of their intentions, there it is. It had random numbers scribbled at the bottom and ignored the fact that my first post-college years included a lot of involuntary help and more guilt. Ethan got creepy anonymous texts, too, saying he was turning me into a traitor and threatening to warn any future kids about the dangers of women like me. I wish I was joking. He made all his texts into a PDF and sent them to the police, who surprisingly took it seriously given the stalker escalation from my parents. The cop said this was obsessive, unhinged, and frankly, weird. So, at least it's official now. Lisa and I have been talking almost every day. It sometimes feels like I'm learning how to be a person in real time, trying out things like texting at random for advice, joking about dumb TV shows, and even gossiping about our parents, our birth mom, that is, who we both agreed is more of a character at this point. We met up for dinner for the third time, and brought Grandpa with us. He started tearing up as soon as he saw us together, then, in the most Grandpa move ever, pushed a box toward us. Inside? Heirloom jewelry, the certificates for land his father once owned in Italy, and, get this, a whole handwritten letter addressed to my granddaughters, if you're out there someday. No lie, we both cried for 20 minutes and even Ethan was misty-eyed. Even wilder, Lisa's adoptive family asked if I wanted to come to her graduation party. You guys. An actual, functional family gathering, paper lanterns, someone's dog, an aunt who grumbled about potato salad, cousins who just welcomed me, no interrogation, no weird cruel digs. It felt fake, honestly, because I'd never known that warmth. But here's the kicker, Lisa's family didn't just accept me, they invited Ethan to join their softball team for next weekend's family game. For the first time in my life, in-laws sounds like a dream, not a threat. My therapist has been my personal Gandalf through all this. We spent a session literally role-playing what it feels like to say no without apology, and she got me to write a unsent letter to my mom. I realized I spent my whole childhood trying to be good enough for love that didn't actually help me grow. Instead, it stunted me. But I also realized, the people who do love me now, love me as I am. A huge moment, my parents' constant pounding at my, literal and emotional, doors was causing major anxiety. But last week, when my mother actually came to Ethan's work, and tried to pull him aside, he called security and told them, that woman is attempting to harass my partner and me. Please remove her from the premises. He told me what happened and I burst out laughing/crying. The shame is strong, but the pride is too. That night, I unblocked my mother just long enough to send her one message: you are not welcome in my life anymore. If you continue to harass or stalk me or anyone I love, I will get a restraining order. Do not contact me again. Then I blocked her for good. We celebrated with takeout, and Ethan said, this is the last time we'll clean up their mess without legal help. Reader, I nearly proposed on the spot. As if things couldn't get more surreal, my dad sent Lisa a Facebook friend request and a DM babbling about preserving the family name, as if her existence, the proof of my mom's secrets, was her sin, not their choices. Lisa, pro move, replied, if you contact me or my sister again, I'll screenshot and forward to her lawyer. He blocked her immediately. Lisa and I are planning a short road trip this summer to visit Grandpa's old home, dragging Ethan along as our official emotional support guy. He's already learning all the family tree names, completely invested in my newfound heritage, and, swear to God, wants to learn Italian just in case. Sometimes I walk into our living room and he's quizzing himself on Duolingo with Familia/estate. I'm lucky, right? Ethan and I have started touring apartments, too, since his lease is almost up. I never thought moving in with someone could be this simple, this safe. Every time I think I might be too much or broken, he hugs me and says, you can't break what's already rebuilt better. I think I'm starting to believe him. My parents are out, maybe for good. The guilt surges, but the relief is finally stronger. I have a sister, a grandfather, a real support network. I have a therapist who actually likes my metaphors and makes me see how remarkable surviving all of this is, not shameful. And I have Ethan, who proves every day that families can be chosen, built, and fiercely protected. It's not the life I thought I'd have, but, maybe for the first time, I'm glad it's mine. If you're reading this and stuck with toxic family, I hope you know, you're not alone. Sometimes, your found family is waiting just around the next heartbreak. Don't let anyone convince you that you don't deserve that chance. Update 4: if you had asked me 6 months ago what I thought the word closure meant, I would have said something like ending or finality. But after everything that's gone down, I think closure is actually more like renovation. You can knock out a toxic wall, but you still have to figure out how to rebuild the space in a shape you actually want to live in. There has somehow been more drama, more surprise connections, and, unbelievably, the beginnings of actual peace. Bear with me, this is a wild story, but it's also the first time I've written an update where I'm not shaking with panic or crying at my keyboard. Let's start at the weirdest part, my mom's sudden public redemption tour. About a week after the last update, when I'd finally, blocked her on everything and shut the legal door, my sister Lisa texted, "Check Facebook ASAP, cue doom scrolling." My mother had put up a giant, public post about forgiveness, the complexity of adoption, and mistakes young women make under societal pressure. My aunt, her sister, who I haven't heard from in years, commented, "Proud of you three," like it was some reality TV show redemption arc. The whole thing was a not-so-subtle PR move, carefully worded to take zero real accountability. She even alluded to an estranged daughter and a sad, manipulative outsider. I guess I'm the manipulative outsider, now? Lisa's adoptive mom gently pointed out that this was classic abuser behavior, trying to build public sympathy before any real news or truth could come from me. Ethan said, "Give it 3 days, she'll crack." Yep, he was right. 3 days later, she emailed my work, copying my boss in HR, making vague claims that I was unstable due to unresolved family trauma and shouldn't be left in a client-facing role until I apologized to her. My boss is a 55-year-old no-nonsense lawyer who once wore a tiara to a meeting for the sole purpose of shutting down a sexist client. Her response was, "We keep a file on people like this. Would you like to add it to yours, or should we paste it in your family drama folder?" I howled, but also cried, because. Who does that? Answer, someone who is panicking because her grip is finally gone. This time, instead of folding, I told my therapist immediately. Drive. P helped me draft a single, airtight legal response. When the email harassment didn't get the desired result, everything finally, really stopped. There has been true, actual silence from my parents for 3 weeks. No creepy driveway appearances. No mailbox bills. No deranged DMs. Ethan literally threw confetti in the living room after the second week. It felt both silly and sacred. But, on the brighter, wilder, and so much better front, Lisa and I took our mini road trip to see Grandpa's home. We were nervous he'd be too frail, he's 90, but he was sitting in the window, actual newspaper in hand, with a big welcome home sign that his next door neighbor helped paint. Lisa's adoptive family met us there, and they'd invited a friend of the family whose parents had also adopted from the old home county. It became, totally unexpectedly, a kind of accidental reunion. Over home-cooked food and slide projectors, we heard stories about our great-grandmother who'd spent World War II, hiding Italian partisans in her cellar, our great-uncle who'd been an early civil rights lawyer in Chicago, and the cousin who'd run away at 19 to become an abstract painter in Berlin. I was asked, not forced, to share my story, and for the first time ever, I spoke about the weirdness, the heartbreak, and, to my total surprise, the healing. Nobody interrupted. Nobody blamed me. When I finished, Ethan squeezed my hand under the table, and Lisa looked at me with literal tears. "I'm so proud of you, sis," she whispered. We spent a night at Grandpa's, looking through photo albums, drinking too sweet wine, and making plans for an annual sisters trip. Lisa and I both realized we'd never been on one with someone we felt totally safe with. Later, we thought back on the past months and realized we had reclaimed the word family. It didn't mean yelling, or cruelty dressed as concern. It meant people who actually listen. Back in our regular lives, Lisa got a job offer at my university, so we'll both be in the same city soon. Our first plan, birthday brunches, joint Thanksgiving with Ethan and her family and Grandpa, and absolutely no family members who wish us anything but joy. I also did something I never would have dreamed of. I let Ethan take me apartment hunting. And then, on the day we signed the lease, I asked him to marry me. No big elaborate public gesture, just us in our new, unfurnished living room, sitting on the floor with takeout. "Do you want to build the rest of this with me, for real, forever?" He laughed and cried and said yes. I don't think I've ever been happier or more sure of anything. We're not in a rush for a massive wedding, too much family baggage, lol, but we're planning to elope, with just Lisa, Grandpa, and Ethan's best friend. Found family only. For the first time, I actually feel like I'm enough. I've learned that I can grieve what I never got, while also building what I've needed. Real love isn't just safety, it's possibility. And family isn't always what you start with. Sometimes you have to fight for the right to build it for yourself. If you're still reading and stuck in your own storm, it's okay if your peace looks weird at first. It's okay to need time, and support, and to start over. Your story isn't over. If you need proof, just look at this mess turned miracle. I truly, for the first time, have hope for what comes next. And whatever wildness comes my way next, I genuinely believe I can meet it, and finally, let it end with me. Thank you, so much, Reddit. You've all helped me keep going when I absolutely couldn't see the way. I'll update again if some new insanity befalls, but I really, truly hope this is the last time my family of origin ever makes a big appearance in my life story.